Hello and welcome. This is part 2 in the eMaint training videos for DTE Biomass. And in this video, we're going to cover assets and PM tables. Now this video is going to be much more detailed than the previous one. So I'd recommend having the actual eMaint sandbox account open and available for yourself to play around with, and pressing pause on this video every once in a while to try out the different features we're going to be covering as you're going through it. So go ahead and get started here. So we'll go into eMaint here. So we're going to start with assets. And with assets, we'll just go over the columns of importance. We touched on this briefly in the last video, but go through it again here real quick. So your account will likely look different as far as the columns that are showing up on your assets table. And so in this case, I have site, system, subsystem, component ID, component description, building location, manufacturer, model number, rating, meter reading, meter ID, the date in which these items were added, and the date in which these items were last edited. So let's go into one of these assets to see what that looks like. Let me search for, say, engine 1. So looking into this, we see that there is a component ID, there's a region, there's a site, there's a system and subsystem, there's a component description, and there's a manufacturer, a model number, a serial number. In certain instances, you can put rating in there. Say, for example, if it's a flare, you could put what the flare is rated for, how many SCFM. You can put an initial meter reading if that's applicable, and any historical comments. This seems like a bunch of blanks information, but you can make your information a lot more detailed and useful for your site. So let's go ahead and see what it would look like to add a new asset. Clear that filter. I wanted to start a new record for a new asset. You go to this plus sign up here. And we're going to touch a little more in detail about component ID in a little bit, but let's go down to meter ID. So meter ID, you could, if this piece of equipment does get meter readings, you choose that here. So in this case, it'd be the generators are usually the ones we, at least for this account, have meter readings on. Moving down, we go to region. You could choose your region here. If your region is not on here, or any option that is a drop-down menu item here is not found, you can let me know and I can get it added onto it. Meter ID is basically the same as up here. I think we have duplicate options there, but that can be changed as well. Under site, you can choose your site. If it's not on here, let me know. Building location is not typically relevant unless your site has equipment that's located significantly far enough away that we can put it on here to make it easier for whoever is looking at this they can find things easily. For system, again, if your system that you're looking for is not on here, you can let me know. But typically, so system, an example of a system would be like gas utilization system. So that would be a thermal oxidizer, or a flare, or an engine. Subsystem would be, if it's in the case of a flare, it would just be flare. If it's an engine, it would just be engine. The component description, again, if your description isn't on here, you can let me know and I can get that added for you. And manufacturer, you can put in, so for example, if it's a engine, if it's a cat engine, this is where you would put Caterpillar or cat. Model number, rating would be, say for example, if a flare is rated for a certain number of SCFM, that's where you put that information. Serial number, this helps to keep track of different forms of the same equipment that we may have replaced, and can keep track of when they were actually actively in service. So that's where you put this in-service date. You can put in the initial meter reading if it's applicable, and also if it's applicable, if there was a last time PM was done on this piece of equipment, you'd put that meter reading here. And any historical comments you'd like to add. Okay, so once you have all this information in place and you've added a picture if you'd like, go ahead and hit Save New Record. But in this case, I'm just going to hit Cancel Changes. And if I'm canceling, I could just say Proceed. Okay, so back to component ID. For this portion of the video, if you need to take time to read this, go ahead and pause the video now. Basically, this outlines the nomenclature we're going to follow for asset IDs. So the asset IDs are going to consist of site, acronym, Potrero Hills Energy. The site acronym would be PHE. So PHE-system, in this case, say for example, if it's gas utilization system, that acronym would be GUS. And that's an example of a system. A subsystem, like we talked earlier, an example of a flare would be flare. And for that, you can do an acronym of FL or FLR, however you'd like to put it in. And then the tag ID could be whatever is on the HMI, PNID, or that is commonly known by the personnel at the site. As long as these tag IDs are unique to this piece of equipment, it typically doesn't necessarily matter what it is, as long as we follow this nomenclature guideline and that the tag ID is unique and is well understood by personnel on site. So let's go back to eMaint. So another thing that you do on the assets table is, and we can even go back to the actual list form. So one other thing you can add in the asset table is add a meter reading. So you do that by selecting an actual asset. Say for example, we got an actual engine. And so you wanted to add a meter reading for engine 1. So you open the asset and you can go into meter readings and add a new record. So in the new meter reading record, what you'd enter is your meter type. So in this case, it would probably most likely be hours. The date it was taken, who it was taken by. Let's say if it was Tyler Smith, you put Tyler. You could do acronyms if you'd like. And then you put the actual meter reading on here. And that's all you have to put in. Go ahead and hit Save New Record. In this case, I don't want to save anything, so I can say Close. And while we're here, another thing you can do while you're on the asset menu, you can add PMs. So if you want to add PMs to an asset, meaning preventative maintenance, you would do that through this tab here. Remember, we were initially in this menu, but you can go into the tab PM Schedule to add a PM record. So you do that by hitting Add New Record, So let's jump into this. So the first thing you'll notice is that you have two forms of periodicy. So one is calendar based, the other one is meter based. And so the options in blue are pertinent to calendar based PM schedules, and the options in yellow are pertinent to meter based. So let me go through each one here, hopefully quickly. So this portion, you add the number, the actual number that the calendar-based PM schedule will be. So for example, if it's 1 month, every 1 month, you'd put 1 in here. You could also increase it by these arrows. You'd put the unit, so we said 1 month, and the calendar-based frequency type. So static would refer to a strictly calendar-based frequency. If we did shadow, that would be based off, the next PM date would be based off of the last time that the PM was actually done, or the work order was actually done, versus strictly on a certain date. So if we did static, we'd pick the next PM date, or the next time that this PM needs to be generating a work order. Let's say it's 2 days from now. And don't need to worry about this, you can just choose standard. So this portion is fairly important. We'll touch a little more in detail in a separate video for this, but task number IO code essentially will auto-populate a detailed description with links to JHAs, ECPs, SWIs that are pertinent to this PM, and you choose that by choosing this, clicking on this magnifying glass icon here. So it'll open up a menu. It'll take you to where tasks are located. Now these tasks, again, I'll touch a little more in detail in a separate video, but generally you can, similar to any other menu that has a list, you can filter them based on whatever you're looking for. So in this case, if you're looking for tasks that are related to Potrero Hills, I type in PHE up here, and because we designed these tasks to have this acronym in the brief description, we can actually filter them that way. So we would choose one of these. Say we want to choose this one. You can apply changes. It'll auto-populate that information down into detailed description as well as the brief description. And you'll see the number for that task number on here. So we'll touch again a little more in detail on that in a separate video, but we'll keep moving here. The assigned to type usually will be employee, but you have other options. You have contractor, customer, vendor. And if you don't see your option on there, again, you can let me know. Site, you'd put in your site. Assigned to, we're not actually going to assign, at this point at least, PMs to specific people. PMs will be assigned to a facility, and everyone in that facility will be responsible for that PM, unless otherwise instructed by your ROM. The system, again, you can rewind if you want to kind of recap on system, but typically this actually will auto-populate on the PMs based on the asset that you're doing it on. So if you leave this blank, you'll notice that it'll actually populate automatically once we we'll open it back up, and after we've saved it. So kind of going over here on the meter-based side of this. So again, this is a number associated to whatever you're going to put in. Say it's every 1,000 hours. So you put the actual number there. you put the units here. Static here is similar to what it was before on this side. Meter type. Okay, so for meter type, you'd have running or totals. Daily average, you typically don't have to put anything for that. This is where you put in the last entry, last meter readings. So say, for example, if you do running, you'd end up putting a number here. Say you're starting at 1,000 hours. Then the next time this will be generated is at 2,000 hours because it's a running meter type. This is the last time that last meter entry was done. This would be the same as the last meter reading entry if it was the last time that the PM was produced at, or that last time it generated a work order. And if you want, you could put in the last time the PM or the work order was closed. So once you're done with all that, we'll go ahead and hit save just to test it. Actually put test in the brief description to make sure we know which one it is. So once we've saved that, we can go back. And so the one we created is this one. So you can go ahead and click on it. It says go to if you want to open up the PM. And you'll notice that indeed system and subsystem did auto-populate based on the asset, because these are those same ones that are associated with the asset. Okay. So that's a new PM record. So that is the end of this video. The next video will touch on tasks and the specifics on that. Thanks for watching.